My golden child sister stole my inheritance, and my parents took her side. Now they want me back. I, 27M, grew up knowing I would have to work twice as hard as my older sister, Emily, 30F. Even though we were both children of a self-made multimillionaire, my father always had a soft spot for her. She was the golden child, the apple of his eye, the one who could do no wrong, even when she did. Meanwhile, I was the afterthought. If I got straight A's, my parents would say, "That's what's expected of you." But if Emily so much as showed up for an exam, it was a cause for celebration. If I worked hard, they told me to work harder. If Emily slacked off, she was just finding herself. I didn't care. I wasn't doing it for validation. I was doing it for the future. My father had built an empire, and I wanted to be worthy of it. I studied business, got an MBA, and even worked in his company, climbing the ranks. I wanted to prove that I could carry his legacy. Emily, on the other hand, spent her days partying, shopping, and jumping from one failed venture to another. She had ideas, but no follow-through. She talked big, but never delivered. Dad still supported her, but deep down, I believed he knew the truth. When the time came, he'd make the right decision. But life isn't fair. When my father passed away suddenly from a heart attack, I was devastated. I barely had time to grieve before I was summoned to the lawyer's office for the will reading. I walked in, expecting some level of fairness. Instead, I was blindsided. Emily got everything. The company, the real estate, the stocks, the investments, everything my father worked for. And me? I got a small trust fund. Not enough to live off, just enough to keep me from being homeless. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. But when I looked at the will, I realized what had happened. Emily had manipulated him. In my father's final months, she had whispered poison into his ears. She convinced him that I was reckless, that I was only interested in the money, that I didn't care about the family legacy. She used his failing health to make him believe she was the responsible one, the one who truly loved him. I was furious, but I wasn't stupid. I knew that fighting legally would be a waste of time and money. She had covered her tracks well. If I took this to court, I'd be stuck in a battle for years, and in the end, she'd still win. So, I walked away. But I didn't give up. I made a silent promise to myself. If she wanted to take everything from me, I'd take everything from her. I took the little money I had, cashed out my savings, and started my own business. I poured my rage, my disappointment, my ambition into it. I worked 16-hour days, made the right connections, and played the long game. I knew how my father built his empire. I had learned from him, worked under him, and understood what made a business thrive. Emily? She had none of that. Within 2 years, my company was making waves. Within 3, we were competing directly with hers. And by the 5th year, we had completely overtaken them. Meanwhile, Emily ran my father's company into the ground. She fired key employees, ignored critical deals, and lived lavishly while the business bled money. Then, the lawsuit started. Bad investments, poor management, employees quitting in droves. She was selling off assets just to keep things afloat. And that's when I made my move. I bought out the struggling parts of the company at dirt cheap prices. Piece by piece, I took back what was rightfully mine, what should have been mine from the start. Until, finally, the last piece fell into place. I bought out the company itself. The day the final sale went through, Emily called me. Her voice was shaky. "You can't do this," she said. "This is my company." "No, Emily," I said, barely able to hide my satisfaction. "This was Dad's company, and you destroyed it." She sniffled. "Please, I need your help." I leaned back in my chair, savoring the moment. "Funny. That's exactly what I needed when you took everything from me." She started crying, begging for a job, for a way to fix things. I gave her the same answer she gave me 5 years ago. No. Update. It had been a year since I took back my father's company, piece by piece, until Emily had nothing left. She had burned through all her money, sold her luxury home, and was barely scraping by. But if you think my parents suddenly saw the truth and apologized, think again. No, instead, they did exactly what I expected them to do. They took her side. I should have known. After all, Emily was always the golden child. It didn't matter that she had sabotaged me, manipulated our father, and run his company into the ground. It didn't matter that I had spent years rebuilding everything from nothing. To them, she was still their baby girl. And I was just the selfish son who refused to help his sister. The first time my mother called me, I let it go to voicemail. The second time, I ignored it. But the third time, I picked up. "How could you do this to your own sister?" My mother shrieked the second I answered. I sighed, already tired of this conversation. "Do what, exactly? You took everything from her. She's struggling now, and you won't even lift a finger to help." "Ah," I said. "You mean, kind of like how she took everything from me?" "That was different," my mother snapped. "She didn't mean to hurt you. She just what? Lied to Dad? Stole my inheritance? Ran his company into the ground and expected me to clean up her mess?" Silence. Then, my father spoke for the first time. "Son, this isn't about the past. It's about family. She's your sister, and family takes care of each other." I laughed. I couldn't help it. Oh, now family matters? Where was all this love and loyalty when she left me with nothing? My mother's voice softened. "Honey, she's lost everything. She's our daughter, and we're worried about her. Please, just help her get back on her feet." I could almost hear the tears in her voice. Maybe once, that would have worked on me, but not anymore. "I did help her," I said, my voice cold. "I gave her the chance to run Dad's company, and she destroyed it. That was her second chance. I'm not giving her a third. She's your sister, and I was your son." I snapped. But that never seemed to matter when she was the one screwing me over. I hung up. Their desperation grows. A few months passed, and I thought that was the end of it. But then, my parents showed up at my office. They looked different, more tired, more desperate. Turns out, helping Emily had drained them financially. See, after she lost everything, they let her move in with them. They paid her bills, covered her debts, and even tried to help her start a new business. But Emily was still Emily. She burned through their savings, made terrible investments, and dragged them down with her. Now, they needed help. "Son, we're struggling," my father admitted. "We invested in Emily's ideas, and things didn't go as planned." I folded my arms. "So, let me get this straight. You gave her all my inheritance, took her side, ignored me when I was struggling, and now that she's ruined your finances, you suddenly remember I exist?" My mother reached for my hand. "Please, honey, we made mistakes, but we're still your parents." I stared at them for a long moment. Then, I leaned forward and said, "You taught me something very important." They looked hopeful. "You taught me that in this family, we only help the people we like." And with that, I called security and had them escorted out. The aftermath. Emily never recovered. She lost everything, including our parents' support when they finally realized she was a lost cause. My parents? They had to downsize, sell their house, and live a much humbler life than they were used to. They weren't homeless, but they sure weren't living in luxury anymore. And me? I built something greater than my father ever had. I earned my success, and I did it without them.